What's up, y'all? This is April Walker from Walkerwear, and you're watching NVTV.
So we here with April Walker from Walkerwear Designs. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am great. Wonderful. One of the first questions I wanted to ask you, and I know you told this story many a times, how did you get started with your fashion line? Like, were you just in your room one day sitting around, like, drawing, or were you, like, how did you get the idea and the concept to create this brand?
It's a funny story. I actually went to school for business and communications, but I grew up in a time when hip hop was really, really still forming, in terms of the lifestyle.
Right.
So I was in college, and I realized early on that I didn't want to work a corporate environment. And hindsight, I realized my father had a big influence over my life. He comes from the music world and always was self-employed, so I think I saw that growing up, and that probably had a subconscious effect. But honestly, clothes was something I always loved. Like, I was always in fashion. Didn't know it, but I was like always about fashion from high school, junior high school really, really got it in. And then in college, I used to hang out a lot. So I realized from my friends, there was this lifestyle going on. And the only thing missing from it was the fashion. Like, everything that my friends wanted and I wanted, we couldn't fit. Or wasn't being offered to us the right way. So I saw this void, especially for hip-hop clothing at that time. Urban streetwear. It's had many different names, but basically I saw a void for the urban consumer, and that was me, and we weren't getting what we needed, we weren't being, the men weren't being offered. I would hear over and over, I need some pants that have Timberlands over them, this and that. And I just remember my first experience of going to Dapper Dan, which was like a 24/7 custom tailor shop in Harlem. And it just blew my mind. Somebody that I could identify with that was really applying a hustle and creativity and giving it to the people. And they were my people. So I was like, I want to do this, And that's really what inspired me. I think a combination of him and my father to say, oh, the entrepreneurial life, I get to serve the people, give them hits, and I know I can do this. This is what I want to do. So that's where it all began.
Okay. Alright, when did you realize that your line had arrived? Like, when did you realize, like, it was starting to spread and you was starting to make it? Like, you can go there, you pick any event or anything, like what did you see that you was like, yeah, this is taking off?
I think even before I had Walkerwear, I think another confirmation, one of my first real, I think even before Walkerwear, one of my first confirmations was Audio 2.
Okay.
So the I Don't Care album cover, I actually did the wardrobe for that, and it was my first shop I had called Fashion in Effect. Fashion in Effect was my first shop where I did custom clothing and just everything from velour sweatsuits to tuxes, but it became like Brooklyn Gym, and I remember Light told Milk and Giz about my shop, and they came and they walked through the door and were like, we're doing the album cover, we want you to do the clothes. So we kind of collaborated on some ideas, and what came up was that album cover. And I just remember looking at the album cover when I got it, like, wow. And that kind of opened my eyes to the possibilities of styling and what I could do with styling. So that was my first thing, and ultimately I created a styling division. But I think that just really was my first thing where I'm like, okay, I'm on my way, And then the second one's Biggie was this guy from the neighborhood I would see when I got off the train station every day at Clinton, out in Washington and Fulton. He used to be outside, and he was this kid from around the way, and one day he came in my shop and he started looking on the walls, and this is when he was on his grind still in the streets and had aspirations, but wasn't signed yet. So when he got signed, we had already developed a relationship. He was buying from the store, and we just kept that relationship. And I remember, I think it was one of his first big videos. There was Walk-Aware in it. They made sure they called me, and from there just a number of other things. But those were probably two of those first times.
Okay. And you were talking about how Biggie had came into your store and you guys had developed a relationship. So you basically, I was gonna ask you, how did you get Biggie to wear your clothes? And you already answered that. You obviously had a relationship with him. Can you remember like the day that you heard when he was killed, and like where you were at and who told you? Like,
I remember. So at that time, I was actually doing merchandising and working with Mike Tyson, and I was in Las Vegas, and I think we were preparing for it. There was a fight going on. He had a fight coming up, and it was like 4 in the morning, and my phone rang, and I think I had my whole team down there in Vegas. We had a place down there too. And I just remember them saying he got shot. And I knew about the party that was happening because I was in Vegas, so LA wasn't that far. And they were like, you should come. But I couldn't come because duty called at that time, and I had so much work going on. But I didn't believe it. And then I found out, like, I got a few calls. After a few calls, I was like, wow. But I didn't believe he died until, you know, you start seeing the news and stuff, and you're like, it was just very surreal. And I think it took me a while, really, for that to sink in, you know, because, you know, like I said, like, so my Brooklyn roots are deep because I grew up here, you know, and so besides just having a love for Brooklyn, I really developed a lot of really close relationships over the years, and that was one of them, you know. So in terms of like starting points, and not just from the music business, but just from being a dude around the way that was a good dude, you know. So it just was like, wow, like we lost a really good one. And I do remember that. Yeah, it was not a good time. It wasn't a good time for the world, but it wasn't a good time for Clinton Hill either.
Right. Yeah, that was a real bad time. Very bad.
It was a bad time for hip hop too.
Yeah, they put
because that whole East and West Coast thing, and it was just all dumb.
Well, that kind of coincides with my next question, because I seen you had clothes on Tupac too, also. Like, were you ever like? First, let me ask you, how did you get Tupac to wear your clothes? Because I seen a few shots where he was wearing them. He wore them in a movie.
Right, we were good friends.
He wore them in.
I used to actually hang with Tupac and Biggie at the same time. Like, we were all friends, so that's
you
why.
Was around them.
Yeah. So to see it go from that, like he used to be around me. Like, we were all cool. Like, so very cool. So it was just like I watched that whole process, and it just was sad. But we were all so young. And learning and figuring it out, and you know, it was just really not disheartening. It was heartbreaking, you know. But Tupac was a really good dude, very highly intelligent, really smart. And I met Pac. I don't remember the first time I met him. The first time I can recall meeting him is with Juice.
Okay. But
I knew Pac when he was a roadie for Digital Underground. Like, that's how far we went back. And then he got, can't remember if it was before or after, but I think he was still doing that when he got the Juice thing. But anyway, time plays tricks on my mind sometimes, so one of the two. But I remember that sticks out in my head as one thing. And then after that, I was also doing a lot of styling. I had that styling company, and there was a label division under Def Jam at the time called No Face.
Okay.
That was putting out a lot of great acts, a lot of very innovative acts. They had a group called BWP. I don't know how many of you remember, but it was Bitches with Problems. They were original. They had another group called No Face. It was Mark Sex and his partner, and I was doing styling for them and a lot of original costumes. But we were doing a video for BWP in Queens. And I think Stretch came through with Tupac. And that was like maybe the second time I was seeing him, you know, and we'd just seen each other like on the Juice set. So from there it was like he was introduced to me through No Face, and he was like, and the first time when I met him, that's what happened at Juice. I was trying to get in the movie, so I went up there with, I just started my fashion and effect company, so that's how far it was. It was probably not even, I don't know when they did Juice, but it was early on in my career, and I had a velour sweatsuit custom outfit that I made with like a bucket hat, and I remember everybody was asking, so it was a dual purpose. I wanted to be in the movie, but I also was trying to get customers. So I had it on, and that's how we connected. He asked about the suit, and I told him I had a tailor shop, and I think he was probably like, okay, definitely. So I don't know if we exchanged info there, but then when he saw me styling BWP on his boy's set, that's how we connected, and then I started styling him, doing costume wardrobe, and you know, we just really became friends and kept working with him through the years.
Okay. Did you ever try to like talk to one of them when you started seeing that situation? Because you had relationships with them, and I'm pretty sure you would never want to see those two bang heads like how they did. Did you ever like try to talk to one of them, or you know, you ever around them and say, yo, look, maybe y'all need to like? Yeah,
me and Pac talked a lot. You know, we talked a lot. We agreed on some things we didn't agree on, and we had those conversations. I always thought the East and West Coast was not only not a smart thing, but it just was dumb to me. You know what I mean? So we had a lot of heated debates about it. You know? So yeah, we talked.
Okay. All right.
He was very, very also opinionated and very headstrong and very when he believed he was right, it was hard for him to listen, because he, you know, he this is where he was right now. But then also he one thing about him, he was very evolutionary in his thoughts. So had he lived, I think we would see a whole nother level right now, because he was in constant growth in terms of his thinking.
Right. So you say like when he came out with the record and that whole thing spit off, did you talk to him before the record came out, or did you talk to him after the fact?
We stayed in touch the whole time. You know, I can't remember at what time and what, but yeah, we had a lot of different conversations. But I just saw, because I stayed in touch with him, I saw a lot of different levels of growth, and it was constant growth in terms of his awareness and his intelligence. And that's why I said, just like he died, it was 24. So imagine who we would be now. That's what I'm saying. It would be just, hip hop wouldn't be the same.
Right.
It'd be a lot better.
Yeah, it'd be way different. Way different. One of the questions I wanted to ask you too, that I think you don't get enough credibility for, you were a female designer. So you were a woman designer, but you were making men's clothes. And that, like, maybe that's not big now, because maybe there's just so many designers coming out the woodworks, but back then that was big. Like, for you to get the people that you got, like, I could go all day with the names, like like Big, like Pac, not to mention you got in the movie scores, because I remember Omar Epps wearing the Higher Learning, and like in Higher Learning he wore your clothes, and you know, you're getting them in movies. What was the things that you had to go through as a female? Like, what was being said to you? Because I'm pretty sure you had to go through a lot of obstacles. But what were the obstacles that you had to go through? Or what were you being told to, like, as far as like when you were trying to present yourself and come with this line? Because I'm pretty sure they weren't having open doors, open arms to it?
I think I was very lucky in the sense of, I think first let me say that I don't know if I dealt with things that were different than any other woman in another industry. I think women just have it harder in our society because it's a boys club, the world, you know. I think that's just, and if you're a woman and you know that and you get that off your chest right away and know that it is what it is, then you could deal with it, because you shouldn't let that deter you from getting to where you need to go, you know. You should just work towards breaking those barriers so that more women can open up new doors. So eventually that will change, God willing, you know. But because I think that was my approach, and I'll be honest, I was probably a little naive because thank God, I grew up with parents that really, really instilled what I could do versus what I couldn't. I didn't look at man and woman so much. I just look at, like, I'm doing this. You know what I mean? Like, regardless. So you could help me, or you could get out the way, or you could be in front of it and I'll jump over you. You know what I mean? But I'm getting it done. And I think that probably came through. I know I had to work twice as hard, and that twice is probably lightweight. You know, probably like 10 times as hard as the next person to be seen, to be heard, and to prove myself. But I just was a firm believer. I mean, it wasn't me. That's the biggest thing, too. I think, you know, I get credit, and yeah, I'm a part of that process. It was my vision. But I always say I had a dream team, and I really did. So I had women on the dream team, and I had men. You know, so I knew when to send a man to the meeting and when I needed to be there. You know, so I think it's knowing your roles, knowing your position, knowing how you carry yourself, knowing what not to wear as a woman in a meeting, and knowing what to wear when you want to be respected a certain way, and it's your posture. And I think I was always really good at having a certain posture, but I think that you always have that underlying, I think, when you're really young. And I started at like 20. You know, you have to get through this underlying flirtatious thing as a kid, you know, like, for, you know, that side, like, okay, this is business. You know what I mean? And it's not said sometimes, it's just kind of, men will look at you a little sideways. So those kind of things when you're really young. But once you know how to navigate through that, then it becomes easy, and you just do what you need to do to get the job done in terms of, hey, I'm here, these are the ideas, let's execute. And once you prove yourself, then I think it becomes easier.
Okay. All right. I was watching a movie. I checked out. Is this Fresh to Dress? How
Fresh Dress.
Fresh Dress. I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
And one part they were talking about the urban industry, and I didn't like. It opened my eyes because I didn't catch it when he first said it. When I went back and looked, they were explaining how when the explosion came, with all the urban wear, you know, you had everybody. You had Nietzsche, Rockaware. I mean, it was Shady. It was so many. It was G-Unit. It got to a point where it was just
oversaturated.
Right. And do you think that that was maybe that helped begin the demise of like urban wear? Because if you walk in an urban store now, like you work in a Dr. J's or Jimmy Jazz or anything like that, you're not really seeing the clothes that cater to you. Right. To us, to the culture. So it's kind of like. Was maybe that the beginning of the demise of the urban wear?
That was definitely part of the factor. I think there was so many contributing factors. But yeah, to answer your question, yes.
What was the many contributing factors? Just to name a few if you want to, or you want to name them all?
I think that was definitely one of them. I think there's only but so much real estate in every store. So there were a lot of music artists that were trying to get in clothing, but not necessarily with the right formula, meaning like taking the business of fashion seriously. You know, it's more than slapping a logo on something and saying you're gonna buy it because you like my records. You know, consumers smarter than that. So that began to dilute the market, and when buyers take away a real designer that has been doing business for a long time, their real estate, to put in something like Shady or other brands like that that aren't really serious about it, I think that hurts the business in the entirety. So that was one of the things. I think that we also started becoming lazy, and I don't mean all designers, but you know, I'm generalizing. I think a lot of designers got lazy. They started feeding into a formula of not pushing the envelope and being evolutionary in terms of their creativity.
Right.
And when the business gets stagnant and you think you could just keep making cookie cutter designs, it's gonna affect. There's always somebody that will come in and change it. So I think all of those things, there was a lot of things. And the last thing was, around that time, the biggest factor is there was another disconnect happening, and it was on a global level, and that was the internet was really, really exploding in terms of like all these different pockets. Online was beginning to be a big place, so brick and mortars were also beginning to have a hard time in terms of how are they going to exist with this conversion of on and offline. So sales were a little sluggish already, not necessarily because of us, but because the consumers are buying differently now, their patterns. So all of those factors made people kind of afraid. And there wasn't enough creativity, and I think what happened, I mean, it was synonymous with music, because I think, you know, we had such a lifestyle, and it was really authentic. And I think when you let pop culture seep in something too much in anything, it just becomes, you see very few traces of the true form of the expression, and I think that just happened with fashion as well.
Okay. Alright. At one point, and I was seeing something, it was one interview where you were talking about it. You said that at one point, like, you walked away from walk away, and like you said that you didn't feel like it was becoming something that you didn't like. Like what happened? Like, if you could go into further detail about that.
So, two things. I think one of the biggest things was I fell in love with what I did because I was really immersed in the lifestyle and enjoyed it. So, like I was just saying, I think if I watched it become this machine, right? I'm talking about the overall category.
Right.
And very few traces of the authenticity of it were left when I decided to walk away. And that was one of the disheartening parts of it. Like, it was just like watching something I fell in love with become morphed into this big machine that was not about giving the people what they really wanted, but about making these numbers work in terms of your bottom line overall. And when it has to be too much, you gotta fit into this formula instead of pushing the envelope and really enjoying the creative process. That was one part of it. And then another part was, I started at 20. When I walked away, I had felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders, meaning like to the outside world, they were like, oh, congratulations, you're doing great. But, you know, I'm maintaining like New York, LA, a Vegas showroom, and, you know, had staffs and payrolls and this and that. It became way bigger than me, and when do I get to have fun? You know, that's really what it became, to be honest. So we were talking earlier about people always see the glory, but they don't see the grind. The grind had become so overwhelming at that time. And it's just like you hear other people when they say people go from being players. I'll use an athlete as an example. They train all these years, right? And then they get drafted and they go straight into that. Sometimes they miss finding who they are because they're just always in that moment of the next moment of training for that next win. And I think that happened a lot with me, and I just became to a point where there was a factor in a time where I was like, I'm really not enjoying what I do right now, and I don't like what that's become. You know, I was going to the shows, watching it become such an entertainment circus. I'll say, you know, it wasn't about like showing your designs and really the love of it as much as I was seeing like artists trying to get free clothes and this and that, and you know, people, women walking around half naked, and it just was Vegas became a whole different thing for me, and it just was like I never was into that. Like you know, I'm just so I just needed a minute. Really, I needed a minute, and to get to know me, and I don't think I'd ever gotten to do that. So that was why I felt it necessary at that point. And I was probably at the height of my perceived success, that I didn't want to lose myself.
Right.
So I felt like I have choices to make, and I wanted to see what I was made of, so I walked away.
Wow. Okay. That. Wow. So you, like, what made you come back then?
So I had a lot of time, you know. I went into the pet business. I did some other things.
Really?
I had a lot. I walked away for a long time because I think that you don't realize how much you take in emotionally too until you have time to digest it. So I took some time, and spiritually I grew, maturity set in, and I really just enjoyed life. I worked with Russell Simmons, and I was the vice president of licensing for Bola Fat Farm. Did that for a while. I worked with Enveonline, did a division for them with women's. I did some different ventures, costume wardrobing. I toured on the Lilith Fair tour, did the merchandising for Erykah Badu, just fun stuff that are projects I wanted to do. And then I saw changes happening in my neighborhood. It was becoming fully gentrified, Fort Greene. And I decided, you know what, I don't want to go back in fashion, but I knew I needed to do something else. So another passion of mine is particularly dogs, right? I love pets. So I opened an all-natural pet boutique and treat business, and from that we started a pet sitting business, and we started pet treats, a family business, and I did that for a decade.
Wow.
But in the middle of that time, I started ghostwriting and for different designers.
Wow.
And behind the scenes, and it prompted me. I started getting work, and I started a company called A Walker Group.
I was gonna ask you about
that. So A Walker Group basically started out of the premise of that, and from there it just was like the laws of attraction. Just started getting a lot of work in a lot of different situations, and I realized from that how much I missed it.
Right.
You don't realize till you start helping other people of that, like, you know what, and it was a different time. I think spiritually I was in a very, like, I had already, like, dealt with the demons and the things that I needed to deal with in terms of, like, finding myself and feeling like I had my balance on life, and just, like, saying, okay, emotionally I'm equipped to handle this now, a little later. And it was different because all that circus was gone now, because, honestly, it's a whole new world now, you know, and where we built something up, we also lost a lot of it. So, you know, I just was like, okay, the exciting part was the digital platform, the fact that I had technology, and I think that was really the deciding factor of, you know, I want to do this again, and I can, because I don't have to play the retail game. So that's really what made me decide I wanted to do Walkaway again. The fact that I could do online and e-commerce and speak directly to my consumer and tell them what I want to tell them, the way I want to tell them, and not have to have a middleman necessarily.
Okay. The retail. Before I ask you the next question, what do you mean a retail game? Like, what type of games did you have to play?
I think that retailers, it's become tougher than ever because brick and mortars are gone, so to speak. There's still some that exist, but most of the ones that count are the big boys, you know, like chain stores, big chain stores, and a lot of them require discounts and upfronts and, you know, all kinds of allowances now, more than ever, that we didn't have back then, you know.
Right.
And so their markup has to be so high, you're left with very little in terms of what your markup can be. So it's almost a wash. You know, that's not fun. You know, so I'm doing all this work to give it to you for almost free, and then you go ahead and mark it up 150 points. That's not fair. You know, that's not what I want to do. So I had to figure out a way to reinvent my game and say, if I'm gonna come back in this and play and be creative, how do I make money and exist? And I think that it takes longer doing it the way I'm doing it. But I also think that I find real true people that really love that lifestyle. Right. I think once you kind of really speak to them, there's a conversation taking place with, I'd say, bridging the gap between Generation X and Y through fashion. That's what I'm doing. You know, that was why I wanted to come back with Walk Away, to have this conversation that I think is missing in hip-hop, period. But music and fashion and now technology are the ways we express ourselves. Right. And so fashion has always been our uniform. So if I can really have an imprint there, I want to do that and be able to speak to the audience, but using fashion as my medium. That's what I want to do, and I want to be able to have that conversation direct. I don't want somebody else relaying that. So I can do that through my Instagram, through my Twitter, through my Facebook, through Periscope, through Snapchat, and then on my own store. You know, you can the content's there. I can talk to you, and then you can come to my pop-up. And you can go to Afro Punk. You could see me at BK Hip Hop Festival. Come check me out. You know, see what we're doing, see what we're about.
Okay. Alright. Another thing. One person, I don't know if you've seen the videos, like Dean Dash. Like, he's always talking about like culture vultures.
Right.
And all that. And he's talked about the hip hop and the hip hop industry and music. But he's also talked about fashion. And I got where he was going with it when he was he's basically breaking it down. And if you got, there's a video like you probably have seen how you saying how Polo doesn't really acknowledge black people. And then he had went into the fact of saying like,
he said Polo what?
Doesn't acknowledge black people. And he had made a point of saying like, you know, there's culture vultures in the fashion industry too. Like, they come into our culture, they try to like come in and, you know, take over the company and, you know, invest in it and make it something that's really not. Like he was saying about Rockaware. He said that with Rockaware, like after a while, he started looking at it. I didn't want it to be like that. I wanted it to be like in the upscale. And his partners weren't going along with that. So he had to get out of there. But his thing is that he says he's doing everything independent. The point of me bringing this up is that, do you feel the same way? Like, have you been through that type of situation where you're dealing with, you don't have to name names, like a culture vulture, somebody that not from our culture that comes in, tries to be with your brand and try to make it something, like you were saying that before, like you was going to the show and it wasn't looking like how it was supposed to look. So you
But that was us.
Yeah.
I was talking about us. We weren't looking the way we should. You know, women walking around half naked and stuff like that. That wasn't them. That was us. You know, I think we both played a part. And I think we both still play a part. You know, I think when something goes wrong, it's never just one person, one side. I think in order to address the problem, it has to be addressed from both sides. It's a relationship. Okay. You know, but yeah, I think I would be lying to say there's not a lot of corporate and culture vultures. Yeah. But I also think there's also, on our side, a lot of room for us to learn the business and to understand the business and to grow from it. You know, I don't think everyone's a culture vulture. Right. You know, and I don't necessarily agree with everything. I think the premise, you know, I can sit here and say yes because I'm independent and I'm doing my own thing. You know, but I don't know whether I'll always be independent. I just think it's business. It's good business, making the right business decisions. Right now it's working for me because at this stage in the beginning, I want to grow it. I want to see, I want to make sure it's guided in the right way. Next year, 5 years, 10 years, maybe I'm going to be like, you know what, I want to pick up partner to infuse this level of growth. But on these, I'm going to do it in this way with these conditions, and I'm still going to have control in this way. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if I'll be independent for 100 years, you know. Right. But the point is, we all have a seat to sit in and make our own, drive our own.
Very cool.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's up to us to do it the right way and make those right turns. And when we detour, get back on track. I do think that I'm just saying I can't judge that next man's decision. Right. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. Everybody has their own shit. But I will say there are corporate culture vultures, especially in the fashion district. There were. I think that sometimes they're not culture vultures. They're very different machines. Right. Do you understand? So if you have a corporate, like, so one thing I'm realizing this next sector of our society, I think that what we're going to see is a lot of strategic partnerships and co-branding existing. Because I think we're going through the globalization of entrepreneurship now, and I think that we won't be able to exist as one company in terms of we need each other. We're interdependent. So you're going to see way more relationships of like Merrill Lynch times Walkerwear, or you know, like I'm just saying it to say, like, you'll see you'll be like, how are they working together? But one company might have something that one person needs, and another company has something another person needs. So you find a way to work together. That's what the fashion business is and was, right? Especially with those kind of situations, because usually it's coming from maybe a very corporate situation where you had this vertical operation that had the manufacturing, everything that is needed for a creative person that has the marketing and the design, and I just got that hits, and this is my audience, and I can make this much money. Right. But I need the manufacturing. But you really need more than manufacturing. You need to understand the business too. Right. So you know how to convey your ideas to relate, to make sure you're not getting screwed over on your contracts, to make sure you understand what to ask for and what you deserve. You know, and when you don't know that and you don't do that or do your due diligence, don't come crying to me later when you get screwed over. If you get knocked down on your ass, like, just handle it. Yeah. It comes with the territory if you didn't do what you were supposed to do. So own that, learn from it, and move on. And once a mistake, twice a fool. You know what I mean? So that's the way I really feel. You know what I mean? And that's where I say we have to learn from our mistakes. And I'm saying that to say that a lot of us made mistakes, and then some of us were fools. So, you know, I think that there's evil on both sides. There's foolishness on both sides, and I think there's a lot that we could benefit from each other if we learn from it on both sides. We both have something we need. Right. Does that make sense?
That makes plenty of sense. I agree with you.
And then on the other side, I think, you know, the best case scenario, I'm gonna give it a euphoric state and say it was in a perfect world. We need to own our distribution. We need to be able to be vertical ourselves so that we have our own communities, just like other communities, where we can go to an African American factory and more than one or two. There needs to be a plethora of choices that exist for us as a people to say, okay, I want to work with you, I want to support you, how can I build, so that we can keep building our communities, and that's how things grow. And there'll be another 1,000 designers that come up. So if you don't necessarily want to deal with Ralph Lauren, you don't have to, because you've created your own Ralph Lauren.
Right, yeah, in that movie, that opened my eyes too.
So I think that there's a bigger discussion. That's all I'm saying, you know, and to say that, you know, there's just one way. I don't really agree with that, because I think there's 10 different ways to skin a cat. But, you know, I choose my way, and I'm good with that. But you know, I'm not gonna knock another way either.
Right.
It's just you need to make that way work for you, and make sure you're standing on your own 2 feet regardless, and it really works for you. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Okay. All right. I wanted to ask this too. I'm not gonna keep it much longer. Another big topic in fashion. Yeah, I know you've seen how fashion has changed through the years. One big issue is, and I personally have an issue with it, but I'm gonna not personalize it. You see men wearing skirts and dresses. Some, if you've seen clips like where Lord Jamal's talking about, like, you know, they're demasculating the black male. You know, you see the black males walking down in a dress, and that image alone is crazy in some worlds and some opinions. And even with Kanye and Puff, they wore they didn't wear a dress. It was a kill. I got what they were doing, but it still didn't look right. It was sending the wrong image. How do you feel when you see that as you being like part of, you know, the hip hop era? How do you feel? Because I don't, you know, a lot of people say that's not really part of our culture. Like, you know, you're not gonna be wearing no dress. Like, it's not gonna fly. So I guess I was asking, what's your opinion on all that?
Okay, so here it is. It's funny because personally I feel there is an agenda to emasculate the African American man in our society. I think it's been going on for a while. Over the decades, and I think that's, you know, and I think that in a broader sense, I just think that there is a lot of confusion in the world right now. And I think that there is an agenda to take away traditions and values and morals across the board, not African American necessarily, across the humanity. And I think there are all kinds of branches within that being attacked. So that, if that makes sense. And I think that at the same time, there are laws even being implemented. You can't touch your kids. You can't do this. You can't do that, to support that. So it's up to us to have another set of eyes to see what's going on and to do the work required to fight that process. If we want to see, we want to uphold, you know, a certain standard. Otherwise, it's going to be a whole different world, and it's already started. But how far do you want it to go? You know, that's my personal opinion as a human, right? But then let me tell you where I feel with fashion. Beyond that, I'm big on censorship. I'm not with censorship. So just like music, even though some of the lame stuff that's out there now, it's a lot of lame stuff to me, I still don't believe in censorship. So in a funny sense, I'm not a hypocrite. I can't say that, you know, I would be a hypocrite to say, because we all express ourselves in different ways. So even though I'm not with it, personally, if a man shows up in a skirt, a kilt, whatever, for a date with me, it's not happening. You know, that's just the way I personally feel. You know, that's my personal. But are you free to express yourself and do what you want to do? Absolutely. You know, like that, because everyone has a different fashion sense, and I appreciate that. And some of the stuff I'm seeing, you know, I can go for it. The kilt and the thing, not really so much, but, you know, to each its own. But I don't believe in censorship. So there's two parts.
Okay, gotcha.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. It does. Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I guess I'm just I just had never seen that, and that image alone was, you know, like when they talked to Lord Jamal.
I felt the same way when I first saw it. I was like, whoa, what's going on right now? And the thing is that I don't think artists realize, and some of them do, and they just feel like they're human first, so maybe they're just tapping into their own creative moment. But when they get out there, the world sees them, and some of them look up to them like God. So the effect they have, to all these young boys is astronomical, more than their parents sometimes, and that part is like, you know, that's like, wow.
Yeah.
So that we're gonna have a million guys running around in skirts tomorrow. You know, that's how you feel, like,
yeah.
You know, but I mean, you know, it's funny, I talk to my nephew and different people, and they look at it totally different. So I just think we're growing up in a different, we're watching the growth in a different era, and I don't know, you know, like, you know, he was talking to me about Will Smith.
I was gonna ask you. Yeah, Jaden. Yeah.
And he was showing me the picture, and he said, I just think he's saying he doesn't care, he's breaking the rules. And my nephew is 20.
Okay.
And he was like, I said, what do you think? Because he showed it to me, and I said, oh, that's interesting. What do you think? He said, I just think he's trying to make a statement. He's told anti-establishment, and he's breaking the rules, and he's saying, you know, it's not about this or that. And I just thought it was interesting that that's what he saw. And I try to go back to 20 in my mind and who I was and where I was. Same person that I would have done all of those things. I did do some things. I didn't wear that, but it was just like, I just tried to understand it more, you know. So it's hard without judging it, because we look at it one way, but I'm trying to hear it through that 20-year-old. But that's where I think that bridging the gap in that relationship exists, to kind of give them another food for thought. You just have to come at them the right way to get to for it to translate, and that's gotta be very, very. You have to use kid gloves, otherwise you lose them.
Well, if you can you there's two more questions I'd ask. If you can talk to us more about A Walker Group, because I know you got two. Because when I looked at and when I was checking everything out, I seen like Walker Wear, I seen the whole site, everything, the clothes, all of it, and then you had A Walker Group. What is A Walker Group for people that don't know?
Did you check out the site?
Yeah,
okay.
I checked it out.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
I know what you're into.
All right. So A Walker Group is a creative consulting company, and we actually work with a lot of really talented and really dope people that on our team that have a lot of experience in different areas, from design to branding to technology to marketing, content. Different things, but what we do is help companies grow, facilitate growth, and it's in all different areas. So if it's marketing, it might be helping them with the marketing components, it might be helping them with a project on an event, it might be facilitating a licensing deal. You know, we've done licensing deals with companies that are in the UK, you know, fashion company that wanted to come here to the United States, and facilitated that licensing partner so they could grow here in the US. Done everything from consumer packaged goods for Major League Baseball, you know, which is like for retail, and then electronics, so like sports, you know, headphones and things like that. So it ranges, but you know, we've done some work with classic media, all the vintage cartoons, and getting those assets to the department stores in terms of design. So it could be anything, but we just like creative projects as long as they make sense and it's in the lane that we feel we can facilitate. That's what we do. We offer our advice and our experience and help people grow and sprout.
Okay. One last question I had to ask. I noticed like on your Instagram, and you're very vocal about the community. You know, I can't believe I'm forgetting this woman's name, but the woman that just in Texas, like she was pulled over and all of a sudden, right, and yeah, thank you, and she all of a sudden like hanged herself, and then you got the whole situation in Baltimore, and then you know, of course with Gardner, of course with what's the kid in Florida. It's like it's sad to say that there's so many. Like I can't remember every one of them. you're very vocal about it. Like, what's your whole take? Like, because I Instagram you talk about it, but I kind of wanted you to express it on camera too. What's your whole take on everything that's going on? Like, as far as like community wise about everything that's going on, like, with Black Lives Matter and everything. Do you think that we're saying or speaking up, or do you think we need more people to speak up?
I think that we need more people to speak up. I'm using my voice through fashion. I actually have a shirt that says "Hello, my name is," and we sell it online, and we promote it a lot. It's a shirt with some of the fallen soldiers and the humans that have died at the hands of brutality and racial hatred, basically. So one of the victims is DJ Henry, who was out of Boston, and his parents are really good people, and they started a nonprofit organization for kids to empower them through athletics and academics and help them. He's been doing that since he passed away, and so we take the proceeds from that shirt and we donate all of the proceeds to that foundation. So that's how we use our voice with fashion, as well as it being a voice. We basically, it's a chance for you to pay homage and to also, also really support a great cause. But you know, also when you wear this shirt, I promise you, you will turn a lot of heads, because they will look and see all of those names and know who they are, you know, and it's a great conversation piece. So this is the way I do it, but however it is, you could just go to the DJ Dream Fund and you can make a donation to them, or outside of that, get involved, use your voice, be vocal. You know, legislation is the best way. You know, I think we have to change laws, and I think we have to know what laws to change. So, Dream Defenders is another, they're young people that are actually out there on the front lines doing the work. I think they're great. You know, find out what Malcolm X grassroots movement. There's so many people that are actually in the trenches doing work. But you know, we went down to the Be More Risings. They had a concert. There was like a week of just concerts, and we went to City Hall and actually sat there and listened in on it. They had an open forum, and there's so many things you can do to get involved. But it's a matter of doing it, and doing it is better than just complaining. And I think once we start doing the work necessary to change it, it starts changing, you know. And I think it's easier said than done, because there are people doing the work, but there needs to be more. You know, I don't think it's gonna take. There's always a tipping point, and the tipping point is coming, because I can't believe it hasn't gotten here. But history prevails. Every time we've seen change, it's the straw that broke the camel's back.
There's been that debate. I'm gonna let you go after this, but it's the N-word. I know you've seen the thing with Tom Hanks' son, like he was describing about the N-word, which he never should be used in my opinion. David Banner has made it very clear about the N-word. And I always feel like that you're somebody that you're very well qualified to give your opinion on it, because you come from there all the way back from then with the culture when we was using it, and at the time, and even I'm guilty myself when I used it, but we came up in an era like when Big and Pac and all those dudes, and everybody was using it. But now when you look back at it, like, you know, the N-word it's a debate now. Everybody should, other cultures be using it around us, and I don't really think that they should. And I don't even think that we should be using it. But that's my opinion. I'm just saying overall in general, what's your opinion on that?
I'm conflicted on it, to be honest. I don't think we should use it because it has a negative stigma. So that's my absolute answer, because I think that it's like a double standard. But I think that when you get black people in a room by themselves, that word comes up, you know, and it's just okay, you know. I think the hard part is that you could, you know, when people say, my nigga, what's up? You know, that's, they're saying that with love. But then if a white person says, look, nigga, you're going to take that a different way. So it's harder to say, I can say something and you can't. It's really not harder, but don't expect, it's just mixed messages are hard, you know. So, and I know where that history and that word comes from. Right. So that's the biggest problem with it. And then on another level, when you really understand, you know, negus, the word negus comes from kings, right? You know, that's like the highest of the high. So, you know, you have to wonder things. There's that debate that goes on as well. But I know in the way it was used with slavery, it wasn't positive. So that's where I think it's like we're perpetuating, our words are powerful. So, you know, we have to think of, they said there's this saying, and it's, your words are powerful, so send them in the direction you want your life to go. So, you know, with that said, think about what you say and what words you're using to describe that.
Okay. Alright, is there anything else that you want to say? You're all set?
Continue elevating the culture.